Yesterday, we looked at the life of Christ. Today, we're going to look at the spread of Christianity. So yesterday, I walked through the basic story of Christ, and we brought him up to the time he was executed by the Romans with crucifixion. Now, today, we're going to look at the spread of Christianity. And on the activity, it says there are hundreds of sects in Christianity and even different beliefs within such religions as Judaism, Islam, Buddhism, Hinduism. People who are agnostic, who don't know if there is a God or not, and people who are atheistic. And so, with that broad diversity of beliefs, the question is, what ties us together? What makes us? What brings us together? I believe there's a lot that does, but I want you guys to say, to look at that and tell me what you think it is. Now, if you want to do the extension, I would like to get a count of how many Christian churches there are. Not churches. I need to change that to the word sect. How many Christian sects are there? What are the major divisions and family groups? And I'll give you a little family tree coming up here too. So, slide one, back to this. Okay, again, we're looking at religion. We need to keep in mind that we in this class have to look at religion as the creation of people, of men. If we look at people or everything else as the creation of God, it's going to lead to disagreement. And this whole presentation will probably bring that more to light, because you'll see in a minute. So when we look at religion as the creation of people, then we can study how that religion reveals some of those people's beliefs and their culture. If we go the other way, we'll never find anything we agree on. And so, again, we got to flip that around. And when it comes to your own personal beliefs, please go talk to your parents, talk to your pastors, talk to people you trust. You don't need to believe any of the religions that we're going to talk about, or even in a God. So here we go. Okay, spread of Christianity. I did put this up there because I did want to show that there is kind of a family tree within the three major monotheistic religions. Judaism begins around 1200 BC. Okay, again, we do not have a great date on that because we count Moses, and you can see Moses down here is our first. I count him as the founder of Judaism. Now, Jews will go back and say there are the patriarchs, the people that predate Moses. Moses is given the credit for writing the Torah, and I'll put that on there too. But he wrote the Torah, or the first 5 books of the Bible. And when you look at that, you can see it's very fascinating to look at the Torah because it will have different perspectives about life. The God Yahweh, okay, again, we went through that earlier, and Saturday's our holiday. Christianity, I have it about 30 AD. Actually, I should bump that to about 60 AD, because 60 AD is about the time that Paul, okay, I have Paul as one of the founders of Christianity. Paul really shaped Christianity after the death of Christ. Paul never met Christ, but he was probably the major designer of what Christianity would come out to be. Now, Christians typically worship on Sunday. There are different sects that will worship on Saturday, however. Islam, okay, they developed around 700 AD. And again, they're monotheistic. They worship Allah. They see themselves as the inheritor of Judaism and Christianity. And the Muslims will say that Allah is the final prophet, okay, which is fascinating. We're going to have to get into that later on too. Next slide. Okay, Paul of Tarsus. Paul of Tarsus was a Jew who was born in Turkey. His parents were Jewish people. They did have Roman citizenship. I do not remember how they got it, but I believe they were a rabbinic class, which is the teaching class. Now, Paul traveled quite a bit, and that is partly resulting in his education, but also later on in his life as a Christian, he went out and was a missionary. Before he was a Christian, though, his name was Saul, and his primary job was to track down and kill Christians. Paul, being a devout Jewish person, did not see this sect of Jesus to be part of that Jewish tradition. And so they had to be tracked down and taken care of. Now, in Paul's life, he does write about half of the New Testament. Okay, 13 out of the 27 books are written by Paul. Now, there is going to be some debate about that as well, because Paul, in his different books of the Bible, will actually attack the same problem in different ways. And sometimes people will say that those books don't necessarily agree with each other. If you're religious, you might say, hey, Paul had a different message for this group than that group. His emotions or something, he had to emphasize something more for each group. If you're not religious, you might say that these 13 books of Paul were written by 13 different people or a few different people. But again, that depends on your own personal beliefs. Now, Paul is responsible for taking his mission to the Gentiles. Okay. In the Jewish world, you have the Jews. These are people who are worshiping Yahweh or El Shaddai. In everyone who else is not a Jew is a Gentile, and they will be seen as two different groups of people. Now, the other side, Peter and James. Now, there are two Jameses, and we'll talk about that in a minute. But this is Peter. Peter was an apostle, and this James is James, Jesus' brother. As far as I know, I think Jesus had 4 brothers. Again, you might see things differently. Okay, some people will say that Jesus was born of an immaculate conception. His mom was a virgin when she gave birth to him. Other historical people, and even some Christians, may not agree with that. And so they think that he was conceived naturally. James, okay, he was not an apostle, but he did join the Jesus movement after Jesus died. And he became essentially the bishop of Jerusalem and ran the church in Jerusalem. Now, James was a devout Jew. He prayed frequently. When he was executed, the people were very upset. The Jewish congregation was very upset because the Jews, the priests that authorized his murder, or not his murder, but his execution, you might call it murder, stoned him to death. Okay, Jews, when they executed somebody, they would stone you to death. Okay, Romans would crucify. But in Judaism, if you got caught doing something wrong, they would stone you to death. They'd put you in a circle, throw rocks at you till you died. Now, going back up to Peter, Peter is often seen as the first pope. There's a line that Jesus said to Peter that, Peter, upon this rock I'll build my church. But historically, we don't know exactly what happened to Peter. It says he went north, but they don't define going north as going to Rome. It's possible he did go to Rome. The Catholics do have a very strong tradition that Peter went to Rome. In fact, I told you when we're looking at, I believe it's Trajan's Mall, that behind his mall is this church that has the chains that held Peter while he was in prison. Peter in Piccoli, I think it is. And so there's things we'll look at later on when we get to Constantine and his mom, and the artifacts or relics, which are religious icons. But historically, it's not proven that Peter went to Rome. I think there's one line in one of the books of Peter that he refers to living in Babylon. And in spirituality and spiritual sense, Babylon would refer to Rome. Okay, kind of confusing, but trust me. But Peter was seen as the first pope. And when he was executed, he historically, again, this is not historical, he requested to be crucified upside down because he didn't want to be equated with Jesus. But Peter and James are kind of opposites of Paul. Okay, Paul took this mission to the Gentiles. James was a Jew and kept the Christian church within that Jewish community. In fact, you had to become Jewish, observe dietary law and health practices to become a Jerusalem Christian. Okay, Peter went back and forth a little bit. And going north may be that symbol that he did accept Paul's vision of taking this mission to the other people. Now, when we look at the spread of Christianity, this is amazing. Now, going back to some things that some people believe, way out here in Cornwall, right out there, a city called Glastonbury. And the Glastonbury Christians believe that Jesus and his dad Joseph migrated all the way out there and built a chapel to Mary. Historically, No one believes that Jesus left Palestine, Judea. But religiously, there are some people that say, hey, he traveled all the way out to the west coast of England to build a chapel to his mom. There's going to be a lot of things you have to take on belief for different sects of Christianity. But when we look at this map, okay, we have this blue and this dark blue. The dark blue is that spread of Christianity by 325. And so you have these little pockets of Christianity throughout the Roman Empire. 325 is going to be a good date because that is when Constantine, who was the Christian emperor, the first Christian emperor, really takes over and makes Christianity the religion of the Roman Empire. And then by 600, the Roman Empire is gone, but by 600, we have all these Christian religions out there. Now, there are three main branches of Christianity that kind of break away pretty rapidly. We have the Roman Catholic, who are centered in Rome, but they're not always in Rome. Sometimes they're further up the Italian peninsula. Sometimes they're even in France. Then you have the Orthodox, who are typically north in this area near Iran. They are Greek, they're Slavic. Then you have the Coptic. Now, the Coptic Christians are south. They're down in Ethiopia. They're Egyptian. When you guys get into seventh grade, you look at the Crusades. And the Christians from Europe referred to a guy named Prester John, who was a Christian on the other side of the Muslim lands. Those are their buddies that live in Ethiopia. They have their own Bible. In fact, the Coptic, the Orthodox, and the Roman Catholics will all have different Bibles that they see as their own. Even later on, okay, we will see this. This is the kind of the family tree, the sects of Christianity. And Irish Celtics are out there. We got Protestants. Okay, this breaks down pretty quickly, where we have the Catholic Church, Orthodox division over there. We have Roman Catholic, Protestants, and it all splits out. Okay, there are a lot of divisions within Catholicism itself, different emphasis on different groups and different things they need to emphasize. When it comes to Christianity, we in Europe, it split in the 1500s, late in the Middle Ages. But Christians will often have different interpretations of almost everything. When they first started off, the divinity of Christ, was Christ a God or not? That was one of the early divisions. Some people said he was, some people said he wasn't. You'll see a lot of pictures in the Middle Ages where people are holding up three fingers. That's to symbolize that they believe in God the Father, Son, and Holy Ghost, the three gods of the Godhead in Christianity. Not all Christians believe in that. Kind of like the Pharisees and Sadducees too. Once the Bible was written, some Christians believed that there would be further prophets that would bring new light. Okay, the Book of Mormon. Many Latter-day Saints will look at the Book of Mormon as a New Testament that follows the New Testament. In the 1830s and 40s, all through the United States, you had what was called the Great Awakening. In fact, it's right there, where you have the Methodists, the Adventists, Pentecostals that will develop out of this Great Awakening in 1830s, 1840s. Anglicanism, that is the Church of England. Someday you guys will look at, hopefully, Henry VIII. And he needed to produce a son, and he had to have a wife that would produce a son because they thought that women would determine what gender the child was. And the Pope wouldn't give him a divorce, so he created a new church. And that's really where a lot of the people in the United States come from. The Puritans, the Separatists, okay? So, American history is entwined with Christianity. And, I mean, there would be a debate. We still debate this in the United States right now. Some people believe that we are free to worship how we want. Some people see the United States as a city upon the hill where it needs to be a Christian nation. Okay, I have my biases. I like that freedom side, and it is enshrined in our Constitution. there are some people that still would like to have that core Christian values established in our laws. Okay, your ideas. There's my source sheet. And again, how many or what's the diversity of beliefs that, with such diversity of beliefs, what do people have in common? What brings us together? Because there's a lot that does bring us together. And if you get a chance, count how many Christian sects there are. What are the major family groups? I would love to see something like that come from you guys. If you have any questions, give me an email. Take care.